Now we're on the back page of that study guide, and we are going to start with our quadratic formula. So on your test, I'm going to make you use this quadratic formula. Now, sometimes you might see these answers as decimals, and sometimes you might need to simplify your radical. So I'm going to show it both ways on this one. I've got your quadratic formula right here. You do not have to have this memorized. I'm going to use some scrap paper for my work because these kind of get a little long. So the first thing I'm going to look at, number 19, I'm going to pick out what my A, B, and C are so that I can start plugging into my formula. My A is a ninja, B is -9, and C is 4. Now I forgot to say something earlier, but make sure that says equals 0 before you start pulling out A, B's, and C's. So we're going to plug this into our formula. X is equal to negative b, so negative 9 would be positive 9, plus or minus the square root of b squared. I'm going to go on and solve that. That would be 9 squared, 81, minus 4 times a times c. So 4 times a times c. So I'm just reading out this formula right over here and plugging into it. All over 2a, so 2 times 1. So we need to go ahead and do this ourselves. And that is 16. 4 times 1 times 4. And so we're getting here 81 minus 16. Now I'm going to simplify this again. So this is 9 plus or minus the root of 81 minus 16. That is 65. At this point, you need a calculator, and if you want to write it as a decimal, and I do not have one with me. So we're going to estimate it, and I think that is 8.06 if I remember correctly. So the root of 65, if I'm a little off about that, it's okay. Correct that on your own paper. Check my key for that. So this is really 9 plus or minus 8.06, divide by 2. And we're going to split this into 2 different problems. We've got 9 plus 8.06 divided by 2. And we've also got 9 minus 8.06 divided by 2. I'm getting a little off the screen there, so let me move that up. When we add them, we get 17.06 divided by 2. Which is 8.53. Do not like the decimal way of these. Alright, let's move on to the other one. 9 minus 8.06 is just 0.94 divided by 2. So that's really 0.47. So once again, if these decimals are off from my key, follow my key for those. I had a calculator. Do not have one right now. Now let's look at number 20. This is an example of one that is not solved for 0 yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this one as 2x squared plus 8x minus 5. So what did I do? I subtracted my 5 to make that a 0 over there, which meant it went onto this other side. So my A, my B, and my C on my scrap paper again. A is 2, B is 8, and C is -5. So I'm getting x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Notice I already squared my b, so that was 8 squared. minus 4ac minus 4 times 2 times negative 5. Now here's a cool little trick. Instead of writing negative 5 right here, write your 5, move your negative back here, and cancel out that subtraction to make it a plus. And this is all over 2a, so 2 times 2. Simplify where you can. 4 times 2 times 5, that's 40. And so what I have right here is 64 plus 40. So when I go to rewrite this, I'm going to say negative 8 plus or minus the root of 104 all over 2 times 2, 4. Now if you notice in my direction it said simplified radical. So we're going to go and simplify that root of 104. I'm going to do some side work over here. So the root of 104 is, I'm going to start this one as 4 and 26, which gives me 2 and 2, and 2 and 13. Looking for the pairs, and I see a pair of 2's. So my root of 104 is really a pair of 2's outside. Remember, that's like taking the square root of 4, so we only write one of them. And then 2 times 13 is going to go back inside because they don't have any partners. So I'm going to say 26. So 2 times 13 is 26. So that's what I'm going to put in place of the root of 104 over here. So let me go replace it. I've got negative 8 plus or minus 2 root 26 over 4. That's almost done. It's an okay answer, but it's not a simplified radical. Simplified fraction. We did simplify a radical. So you see this 8, that 2, and that 4 right there are all divisible by 2. We've got to simplify that. So we're going to divide all of this by 2. So this is really equal to negative 4 plus or minus. This is a ninja 1. You can put them or not. 2. Notice I did not touch the radical at all. Alright, so those are the quadratic formula ones. And that second one was a really tough one, but it will be okay. Let's look at number 21. Now we're just solving by factoring. So we're going to factor it, and then we're going to solve it. So the first thing I see is that is not a trinomial. It just has 2 pieces. So I'm going to just take out the GCF. 2 and 6 are both divisible by 2. X squared and x, they have an x in common. So this right here is called my GCF. And then we have to write what's left over. So this is division. I'm going to take these and divide by that 2x and see what I have left over. My 2's cancel. X squared canceled with another x, just gives me an x. My x's cancel, and negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. That is factored, but I want solution, so what is x actually equal to? This is going back to your switching your signs. So if it says negative 3, you're going to say positive 3. Anytime you have a GCF with a variable, you say that is equal to 0. Same thing's going to happen in number 22. We are going to say, the 3 and 2 don't have anything in common, but they do have an x in common, x squared and x. So our GCF right there of x, and when I take that out, I still have 3x plus 2 left over. So my answers are, GCF gave me 0. This is going to be a fraction. We know it because of the coefficient. It says plus 2, so we're going to say negative 2, all divided by 3. Now, for number 23, it's not solved for 0 yet, so we're going to have to do that ourselves. So I'm going to subtract that 30x to the other side. Be careful. Don't actually subtract these two numbers because those are not like things. It would have to be an x squared and an x squared, or just an x with another x. So we're going to write those in a line. 5x squared minus 30x equals 0. And now I'm going to take out a GCF again. Now I know this because it's only two things. It must be a GCF. So I take out 5x, and I get just an x left over and a -6 left over. So I'm doing this in my head, but if you need to show your work, you divide by 5x, and that's where I'm getting those leftover numbers from. So my solutions, I see a GCF with an x, so I say 0 for that one. I see a +6, so I'm going to write, I don't see a positive, sorry, I see a -6, so I'm going to write a +6. Jumping straight to my answer there. Now 24, that is starting our trinomials. So we have an A, a B, and a C. So I'm going to switch to some other paper here to do my work. And I've got an A of 1, a B of -6, and a C of +9. Now you're welcome to always use your quadratic formula if you'd like. I think that method's a little long though. So we're going to go to our box. We've got our x squared, our first term, and our last term. My A times my C is 9. And I need two things that multiply to 9 but add to my -6 there. So it's going to have to be a negative and a negative. So it's going to be -3 and -3. So that's what I'm sticking into these places with my x. Take your GCF out to your side, x. Get an x and a -3 left over. Take your GCF out to the side. That's going to be -3. Check to make sure you pulled out the GCF correctly. So you've got two answers here, x -3 and x -3. So your solutions are going to be the same, +3 and +3. Just write that once. So the solution is just 3. Now let's move on to number 25. Before I start solving that one, it is not solved for 0 yet. So subtract your 12 to the other side so that it cancels from that one. And notice I just tack it onto the end because I didn't have any other numbers to put that onto. Now we can factor this. We've got an A, a B, and a C. So A equals 1, B equals 4, and C equals -12. So my first term and my last term go into place. My A times my C is -12. And I need two things that multiply to that -12 but add to that 4. So I'm thinking a positive and a negative where my positive is bigger and my negative is smaller. So I'm going to put those into place. I'm going to put my -2 down here with the other negative. And then I'm going to pull out GCF, x, get an x and a 6 left over. GCF of -2, get an x and a +6 left over again. So I've got x -2 and x plus 6. So my solutions to this are going to be +2 and -6. So that would be my final answer for that. Let's look at number 26. Once again, that's not solved for 0 yet. So I'm going to subtract that 10x. Be careful where you put it though. Remember, it should say x squared, then your x, then your number. So when I subtract this 10x, I'm actually going to put it right after my x squared, and then say +9. Now I can factor that. So I've got an A of 1, a B of -10, a C of 9. So my A times C is 9, and two things that add to that -10, both are going to have to be negative to multiply to that +9. So I'm going to think -1 and -9. So when I go to my box, first term and last term are fine. Make sure that you're looking at your moved equation here. And I'm going to put in my -1x and my -9x. I'm going to pull out my GCF to the side, put what's left over after I pull it out on top. Bottom row, pull my GCF out to the side. Make sure, because the first term is negative, that I pull out the negative. And that makes my bottom match that as well. So I've got x -9 and x -1. But my solutions, x equals +9 and +1. Switch your signs. I'm a little off the screen there. Let me write that again. There you go. Next one, number 27. Got a little bit of work to do ahead of time again. It's not equal to 0, so I'm going to cancel out by adding that 10x to this other x. So I'm going to line that up where it goes. And then I'm also going to add this 68 to cancel it out. So I really have x squared plus 16x plus 64. Now it's time to factor. So my a equals 1, my b equals 16, and my c equals 64. My a times my c is 64. Two things that add to 16. Well, that's 8 and 8. So let me go ahead and do my little box. First term, last term, and my 8x and my 8x. So we're going to pull out the GCF to the side, get x and 8. GCF out to the side, get x and 8 again. Lots of x's and 8's here. So we're seeing the same solution. So we're getting x plus 8 and x plus 8. So our solution is, you just have to write it once, negative 8. Let's look at number 28 now. I'm looking at A, B, and C right there. 4, 10, and 4. Those are all divisible by 2. So let's start that by taking out a GCF of 2. So I'm going to simplify this. So divide everything by 2. And there I go. Now that's the polynomial that I'm going to factor. So my A equals 2, my B equals 5, and my C equals 2. When I multiply A and C together, I get 4. Needs to add to 5, so I pick 4 and 1. Now I'm going to go to my 4 box. So I've got my first term in the right spot. My last term in the last box. I'm going to split that 4 and that 1 in between these two. It doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm going to put the 4x up there and the 1x down there. So I pull out a 2x and get an x and a 2 left over. Pull out a 1. There's nothing in common there. So I get an x and a 2 left over. Yeah, I keep getting off the screen. Apologize for that. So my factors are 2x plus 1 and x plus 2. So my solutions are negative 1/2 and negative 2. If you're like, where did that fraction come from? Don't forget about those coefficients. They always move to our denominators. Number 29. Something's wrong with that one from the start. It says x cubed. It usually says x squared. If you look on a little bit more, notice you have a GCF of x there. So we can pull out an x and get 2x squared plus 11x plus 5 equals 0. So don't lose that GCF. We already found one of our solutions, 0. Now let's factor that polynomial and find the rest of them. So I get A equals 2, B equals 11, and C equals 5. So my A times my C is 10, which is 1 and 10 to equal that 11. Now I go to my 2 by 2 box. I get my 2x squared, my 5, and my 1x, and my 10x. So plugging those right into place. GCF of the top, that's an x, gives me a 2x and a 1 left over. GCF of the bottom is a 5, so I get a 2x and a 1 left over again. So this is x plus 5 and 2x plus 1. So when I go to put my solutions down, I'm going to switch their signs to negative 5 and negative 1/2. Oops. Do better brackets than that. Number 30. First, I need to put everything on the correct side. So I'm going to subtract the 27y to cancel it. And I'm going to subtract that 6 as well. So cancel equals 0. Now I made sure I put them in the correct order. So it said y squared, then y, then 6. Now before I start factoring 15, 27, and 6, do you notice a GCF there? Take it out. Make it easier on yourself. So we're going to pull out a 3, because they're all divisible by 3. And I'm going to say this is 5y squared minus 9y minus 2 equals 0. Now that's what I'm going to factor. So let me go to my side work again. I've got an A of 5, a B of -9, and a C of -2. So my A times my C is -10, and it needs to add to a -9. So I'm going to make that -10 and 1. So at my 2x2 box, I've got my first term in my first box, my last term in my last box, and then I'm going to split this -10. I'm going to put that with the 5 up there. And my 1y goes down there. Now pull out the GCF to the side. So we've got 5y with a y and a -2 left over. Nothing in common, so pull out a 1, so y minus 2 on bottom as well. So my factors come from my sides. I've got 5y plus 1 and y minus 2. And for my solutions, I can actually throw away that GCF because it doesn't have a variable in it. So that's not going to be giving me any value. So I just have two answers. I've got the -1/5. That became my denominator. And I got my +2. And we are done. Good job.